this is where like Sora and stuff comes in, right? Or like Clan, whatever the other competitor is. Like you just create personalized brain rot, right? Just infinite Subway Surfer plus whatever content you actually want. I wonder how like addicting that gets, right? And like if you can make it like cheap, like, you know, if you're like, wow, we made like 10 videos for $0.01, but the advertiser has paid us 2 cents, and our user is just straight like plugged into the matrix. They have no shot of wanting to like hop off. It's a great, I mean, I hate to say it, it's a great business model, right? Because you just have infinite attention. But again, it does get to the point of it's kind of a scary consequence here.
Yeah, I mean, I have maybe a bit more utopian view on this, which is like, you know, clearly right now, like this is just another thing. You don't need AI to generate brain rot and make that be like a huge percent of what the young kids are watching, right? Like, brain rot has such a huge brain share right now, which is like ridiculous. But I don't think it's going to go up much with AI. In fact, I would hope and I imagine that the opposite will happen, right? Which is that, hey, you are, as you have always been, or at least for the last couple of years, you're facing this tsunami of brain rot and of Subway Surfers and a podcast and another video, right? Like stacked on top of each other. And then it's like, yeah, and to a certain extent, like we're saying, we get it because it's like firing all the dopamine and this is the best thing for your brain or whatever. But then it's, and so, yeah, that like mid TV show that's like the third reboot of some franchise your mom loved, right? Like isn't competing. But then maybe if you know, Google, like, or let's say Disney Plus AI or Apple TV AI can generate like the show or the movie that's perfect for you, maybe that can compete with the brain rot, you know? And so that's my slightly I like it happier view of the situation, I guess. And it comes from a personal thing, which is that, like, I don't know if y'all have ever, like, you know, it was sort of pithy when I said it before of like, yeah, rebooting the series for a third time, but that's like most entertainment now is like some third tier reboot of a series, and like, you know, the original fans hate it, and then the secondary fans hate it, and then the new people like it and then give up on it, and it's like, you know, Disney's is in a bit of a hurt situation because they're losing their Marvel fans and they're losing their classic Disney fans, and so it's like, hey, maybe you don't need to try to do this impossible problem of make content for everybody or make content for the loudest people or whatever it might be. It's like, oh, you can actually just make content for one person.
Yeah. I mean, that leads us into the sort of last miscellaneous topic, right? Video game performers protesting.
Yes.
So there's part of this ongoing question of how does society react to technologies that are changing the way creative content's made, right? If I can generate an infinite amount of voices, do I still pay humans to make these voices? Do I still pay them to be in these applications? Certainly from the pure economics perspective, you got the business case to say no, but then there's sort of a more humanist, artist-centric case that says, well, don't we want to keep artistry alive at the human level?
I see Jacob's got the article up here, right?
Yeah, I pulled up the article. I just, like, it was mostly for B-roll there, but there are, like, some interesting points here about just, like, you know, how many people were out at the protest. It was, you know, it was a group, right? Like, it made news. I think, you know, I think the other key point is this has been going on for a long time behind the scenes. At least the organizers for the event were like, oh, yeah, we've actually been, like, we've been talking, we've been negotiating for months, and so this isn't new, and I don't think this is the last we're going to see of you know, this sort of like rough transition.
Yeah,
and I say that because it's going to happen. Like, this goes back to there is no third option from last week, right? Like, and I think entertainment is going to be one of the last industries to realize that there is no third option, but they might be hit the most by it.
100%, and I think one interesting thought here is, I wonder how we as a society change based on entertainment being personalized. Like, I just was thinking back to when you talk about, like,
right.
Imagine like 20 years ago, like Friends and so on, everyone watched at the same time, and you had this kind of shared understanding and shared kind of character in your mind of like, oh, that's a Chandler or that's a whatever. Like, there was definitely a shared understanding of characters. Imagine you watch your exact specific like rendition of a Marvel movie, and you're like, this was so good. Remember when this character did X? And then you go talk to another person, they're like, what are you talking about? Like, I had a completely different movie playing, and it was way better than yours. Maybe not. It's not a comparison thing, but I'm just getting to the point of personalization is this double-edged sword as well, where like I wonder if there's going to be a not shared understanding of, say, characters and so on. And I wonder how that then impacts the entertainment industry. I do still think there's a time and place for like authenticity and this shared sort of community, right? So there might be a bit of a tug between the two of hyper specialized content where you're like, this is unique to me, this is like art, I understand it, versus I actually want a shared space and a shared community where we all watch this and react to this. So maybe entertainment is actually well positioned to like have a bit of a, like say in all these things and push it in a certain direction.
I tend to agree with that. I mean, I think it's a yes and sort of thing. I think in technology we kind of have this temptation to say things replace other things. But almost no technology has been formally replaced. There's just been a different emphasis. So like radio still exists, theater still exists, movies still exist, TV shows still exist. They may have had their heyday, right? Certainly, I don't think anyone's arguing theater's heyday is now. But there was a heyday, and then it's sort of like energy waves or something, right? Like other things get more energy than they did before, and it gets redistributed. So I think you're right. There is the hyper-specific content, and it's not clear what works for that. Like maybe part of watching a movie is we all view the same content, so therefore hyper-specific movies don't work, but hyper-specific social media accounts might. Or it's hard to say where we want this hyper-specificity, or if it's just the content comes to me in a unique way. I'm browsing it, I get to build my own space and consume it in a certain way, even if the things I consume are shared artifacts. I don't know. I think it's super interesting.
Yeah. I think people don't actually want to build stuff. I think the few... I have every reason to think that builders are a very small percent of people. And so I actually see a world in which, like, in the same way that we have creators are a very small percent of people, and most people are watching content. We have recently become creators. We have all spent most of our life watching content. And so I think there'll be a similar thing, right? Where like some people, certainly Chris, will want to make some cool like ancient history TV show and then people can watch that, people can remix it, maybe it's automatically remixed for them, like it's tweaked to be more interesting to them. It follows a different character through ancient Rome because that character would be more interesting to that person. And then I think there is an interesting world in which like, one person can build a whole world and a way more interesting story, and maybe more than a story, right? Like interconnected stories. And so I do see this world where it's like, the flip side to the coin of like what Dylan said, which is, maybe it's, I got this version, you got this version, it's different and that's disconnected. Oh, maybe it's actually, that's cool because I saw a different part of the world. And now there's this whole, like, what are people going to do when they don't work anymore? Like, maybe some people are just reconstructing the lore of this fake world that Chris has created with an AI. And now all the viewers have seen different parts of it. And so they're reconstructing the lore and sharing and discussing it, and that's leading to more and more stories in this world. Like, I think entertainment in the AI future is beautiful.
Finds a way. I mean, I think video games are more set up to be replaced by AI than other fields. Because like movies, you can make the case there's a distinct performance. What gamers want a lot of time, especially out of single-player content, is novelty, right? I want to walk into the Skyrim pub, and so part of the problem with performers, part of the problem in the performer's case is that what the user wants is that when I go into a pub in Skyrim or Elder Scrolls 7, that character uniquely talks to me about things I did, people I talked to, how I approached last time, did I order a beer last time? And so there's already this user desire, and you see RPGs getting more and more complex over time. There's already this deep user desire to have customized character interactions. So different than film, where film, I think people want to see the same movie so they can talk about it. Games already don't operate this way. Like if you have a multiplayer match and I have a multiplayer match, we had different stories happen to us. We had different events. We had different players in our lobby. And so I think it's a much harder case to make in games.
I would say that the biggest fans of a movie, or the people who love that movie the most, they have the extended edition and the special edition and the director's commentary, and so I don't think I don't know if I actually believe that people want to see the same thing, right? Like, I just think that's a limitation of movies. Maybe. I don't know.
Maybe. I mean, I don't know. You have this entire economy built around reacting to movies and talking about movies, and if we can't talk about the same shared service, even those editions, you're talking most of the time minor changes, Ridley Scott notwithstanding. There are.
But to be fair, there's potentially a bigger industry for spoiler-free reviews, right? Like people, I mean, it might not be bigger, right? Maybe a lot of people consume content via reviews that are spoiler reviews, but a lot of people check out reviews before they go see something. And so it's like, you know, a review of my experience in this AI created world is kind of a spoiler-free review. I'm talking about the vibe. How well did Chris do at creating the vibe of Ancient Rome? And how well did my experience go? And then I can make a recommendation. So should you have your own adventure in this world, right? I think it all kind of tracks.
I think games track for that more than movies. Yeah, I'm with you. I get you.
But I think the meta point here is, I think I agree to your point of like entertainment being pretty awesome in the AI world, is that people want community, right? They want to find an experience or group of people who share a similar interest and have a greater experience with those people. And I think that is where the awesome things, like either you go like hyper personalized or you can like find a community. Like, you know, you might be like, as you say, it's a sandbox. It's all about like one story and you'll have different experiences, but you've still found that tribe of people that want to experience that. And then you can choose whether you share the same experience or have a different experience. But I still think underpinning that is the fact that you wanted to still have like this connection or this shared understanding with other folk. And I do think AI can help with that. And I think there's a massive problem, honestly. And I think it's a massive opportunity because, as you say, and we'll have episodes on this of how work will be certainly displaced by AI. You're going to need to do something with a whole lot of spare time. And I think we weren't necessarily made to just, you know, all of us weren't necessarily made to work infinite hours and like really strive. Some people want to just consume, and being able to find what people you want to like interact with and what content you want to consume might be a lot easier in the AI world. Thoughts, disagreements?
No, I guess I'm an optimist on the jobs angle. Like it's mostly a question of, is AI so different that, because all the technological revolutions prior to AI, we ended up making a lot more jobs in total. That's not to minimize the transition, right? If you were a horse farrier and then we transitioned to cars, it's not a good time. So I'm not minimizing the transitional costs. But we would have to make the case here that this is so net different that we're not going to end up in a more abundant world full of more creative opportunities that maybe are different, but that there will be more of them. And that might be true here. I don't know. I have reading too much history makes you think that like everybody thought their age was special, and they actually just ended up following the pattern. And the pattern was like hard transition, and then more opportunities at the end. Is that the same here? I don't know. I have no idea. We're going to find out together, but it has been true historically, and so we have to. And historically, there was always this problem, right? There was the, oh my God, it's going to end everything. How dare we introduce factories? How dare we introduce the book? I mean, you can go all the way back to the book, and people are like, this is going to ruin people's memory. You have Greek philosophers talking about like writing things down causing a loss of memory, and this isn't the way knowledge should work. And I think that experiment worked out, right? People are sharing more knowledge than ever before, and the internet kind of poured gasoline on that. So I don't know. I don't know if this happens. If this one's different, there's always a chance it is. It's fundamentally different, and then history maybe doesn't guide us on that. But I tend to think of an AI-enabled world as still having a lot of roles for people. I tend to agree with the Naval Ravikant quote that the average company size trends to 1 over time. Right? You just start having such capabilities that people start making hyper-specific businesses that are, and you're seeing that in the creative world. 3D printing especially blew this wide open, right? I don't need to have a whole factory run of something. I can make, my farmer's market has a guy that makes 3D printed dragons, right? This is a tiny town. Do we just get more of that? Do we get people making hyper-specific content? I don't know.
Honestly, I hope so. I hope people find their niche, they find what they want to do, and they explore the creative side as opposed to moving numbers in a spreadsheet, right? Like maybe we look back and like from a historical context and we're like, wow, those were the dark ages where we kind of just, you know, like went to middle management, kind of wasted our time sitting in traffic, doing things we didn't really want to do. And as you say, maybe the next shift is roles that are, you know, specific, that focus on what you are passionate about or what others might be passionate about. So I hope it moves to that thing where people feel a bit more agency, right? They're like, I'm actually, given I can do anything, I'm going to focus on the thing I want to do and find the folks that also are interested in this and trade and so on. So I think it will be a very interesting time. I'm hopeful, but I think it's at a very critical time to make sure we're adjusting on the right path.
We already have some of that, right? People look back at data entry before computers as insane, right? They're like, wow, like there's just these armies of typewriters and these armies of people with pads and papers just calculating. So what we look back and to your point, I think COVID made everybody look back at commutes and go, oh, I really was wasting a lot of time in the car. I got a lot of podcasts listening in, but I was wasting a lot of my day. What is going to be that looking backwards from AI? I don't know.
Well, we'll have to wait and see, won't we?
Next time on.
Yeah, in 3 years on the Feature Crew podcast.